a media tutorial, if you may. You release information on Friday afternoon. It's considered a news dump. And Tennessee didn't release Banks re-signing with Tennessee, but they might as well have, because ballquest.com does a great job of covering Tennessee. They're tied in there, and they reported it Friday afternoon. So either Banks leaked it to them or somebody at UT leaked it to them, and they got to have it first. Tennessee has not sent out a release yet to this point, Caleb, but nevertheless, they didn't send out a release when it was done. They let it come out as a breaking news report, and I don't understand that. I've said for 4 years that Tim Banks is a fantastic piece of this staff, that he should be celebrated even when Tennessee seemingly was struggling on defense. They were struggling because of personnel, not because of Tim Banks. I think this is a re-upping, a re-signing that you should be incredibly proud of. Banks goes from 1.5 million to 2.1-ish. I mean, that's a raise, but still $2 million for a coordinator is not overpaying in this climate of college athletics. Is Tennessee ashamed of this re-signing?
I think Josh Heupel might be. Josh Heupel's a little bit cocky. We can agree on that, right? A little bit arrogant. With this Tim Banks contract, he is now officially the 4th highest paid assistant coach in college football. In December of last year, the top 3 were LSU defensive coordinator Blake Baker making 2.5, Michigan defensive coordinator Wink Martindale making 2.3, Ohio State defensive coordinator Jim Knowles making 2.2, and then Ole Miss defensive coordinator Pete Golding making 2.15. Banks is now making 2.15. And Jim Knowles has just left Ohio State. So he moved over to Penn State. I don't know if he got more money. I don't know what his contract is. That's not out yet. I can't imagine that he took more money to go to Penn State. It seems like just a move to go home, right? Actually, no, I'm looking at it now. He's got Jim Knowles now has a 3-year, $9.3 million contract. So Jim Knowles is making $3.1 million as an assistant coach. So he's number 1. So that puts Tim Banks tied with Pete Golding for number 4. I think a lot of times, and maybe this is changing, Dave, but when you pay assistants a certain amount of money, it gives off the vibe that it's not your program and you're dependent on those assistants. Nobody wants to look like, no head coach with an ego wants to look like, let's say it, Philip Fulmer, who looked like Fulmer looked like a coach who needed certain assistants to have success. And nobody wants to look like that.
I completely disagree. I think not questioning you, but for those that follow college football very closely, I think you know that Steve Spurrier needed Stoops and Charlie Strong as his defensive coordinator. I think most coaches do. I mean, there may be exceptions like Joe Paterno or Tom Osborne that know both sides of the ball, or Nick Saban, but ultimately, I think one guy's going to be better versed on one side of the ball and needs somebody he can trust to run the other side of the ball. That's what Tennessee had with John Chavis. And you would have said that because of the relationship that the players had with Chavis, and because of the fact that he knew to put them in the most simple positions possible, Chavis was as dependent upon as Tim Banks. And that resulted in 2 championships, 1 a national title.
But again, and there was nothing wrong with that. To Fulmer's credit, he didn't care. And I'm not saying it's wrong or right. I'm saying Josh Heupel has an ego. Josh Heupel wants to be the Nick Saban. He wants to be seen as Nick Saban of this is all his team. But he knows he needs Tim Banks. So they open the contract for Tim Banks, but he doesn't want to be seen as a guy dependent on a staff member, Dave. I honestly don't think that. Look, we just saw Josh Heupel this past year willingly adjust his offense and go more 12 personnel and win with defense. A part of that is because he had to, because of his situations. But Dave, a part of that, I think Josh Heupel wanted to prove he could win that way. And I think Josh Heupel wanted to prove that he could win with the physical, grinded out football program that doesn't have to air it out all the time. Not that he doesn't want to air it out. He'd love to. But I do think Josh Heupel is the type of coach that he wants the Nick Saban credit. Look, I got to be honest. I've covered a lot of coaches. Josh Heupel is one of the cockiest coaches I've ever covered. And I'm not saying that in a bad way, but Josh Heupel is one of probably the 5 cockiest coaches I've ever covered. He thinks very highly of himself, and he likes getting the credit for everything. And he wants to be viewed as somewhat of a Nick Saban.
Couple of messages from the message board. The Ohio State DC leave for a $3 million offer from Penn State. If so, Banks is still underpaid. That is the case. Banks never adjusted, stayed stuck in the mud. What's sad is how vanilla he started his calls with a month of preparation. I think that's by design. I believe that Tennessee wanted to be more vanilla because they had more talent. And then one last post from Dylan. Banks is too inconsistent for me. Missouri last year, Arkansas this year, Georgia this year, OSU. It's just too many glaring mistakes for me to offer up that much. So there is the debate.
How are you blaming Tim Banks for Arkansas this year? That wasn't his fault at all.
No. Is Tim Banks overpaid or underpaid? Let's make that the poll question, if you don't mind, Caleb. What the H, brought to you in part by Rick Terry Jewelry Design. They want to be your jeweler looking for affordable game day jewelry, a Tennessee tradition at Rick Terry Jewelry Design. So there we go. We'll set up the poll question. Travis asked, why pay Banks more? Well, it's pretty simple. Clemson and Miami made a run at him, and they were going to pay him probably $2.15 million, and Tennessee had to match that. It's ultimately what he's worth in a market economy, and Miami and Clemson helped Tennessee determine that. And Banks would be silly not to use that sort of leverage to get more money. That's human nature, Caleb. I don't hold that against him.
No, that's your job. Take the money. That pay raises are nice, right? I mean, and also, like, we're talking, look, if you're making 1.5 million, that's a lot of money. But in that situation, 500,000 or 600,000 is a lot of extra money, isn't it? I mean, we'd all take a 25% pay increase.
Right. This is not Nick Saban going from 9 to 10 million and you yawn because he's already okay. Yeah, this is a totally separate situation. A totally separate situation is at Work Trucks, all about trucks that are actually available, trucks that help you maximize your profits by having the right work vehicle now. Time is money. The perfect work vehicle doesn't break down, has all the space to carry what you need. That's what Work Trucks is intent on offering, while other dealerships just can't do it. Contracting about time. Work Trucks saves you time with less back and forth trips and trucks that pass the highest standards to be put to work. The process, quick and easy when choosing a vehicle from Work Trucks, cargo vans, utility body trucks with an app-hide work bodies installed. They're fantastic. They have the vehicles right there. You need Work Trucks, Clinton Highway in Knoxville, downtown Birmingham for the entire inventory. Go to worktruckswithanx.llc.com. Worktruckswithanx.llc.com. Proud supporters of the Tennessee Vols. They'll have you fit to a T. Worktruckswithanx.llc.com. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. We broadcast live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios. That is East Tennessee's largest Lincoln and Ford volume dealer. They are fantastic, and the buying process is unbelievable. You're going to be blown away.